Hi guys, Michael here behind the camera with Joe from Team Shift. He's profiling his top 8 deck profile from the Doncaster Regional. The Regional was just before the ban list, but in a field of Trident and Broadballs, Paleozoic Spellbook still managed to make the top cut. It's an interesting list, followed by some suggestions moving into the next format after the deck profile, so we hope you enjoy.
Cool. Alright, so played 7 frogs, which is pretty normal. The only other thing maybe was you could maybe play another Duke and play one less Ronin. I just didn't want to because Whiptail's around. If I'm forced to keep the Ronin on board because of a D barrier, I don't want it banished because of a Whiptail. So
We'll say Desires, I suppose. For
yeah, exactly. 3, 2, and 2. And then the Spellbook part of the deck is 2 Blue Boy, 3 Spellbook Secrets, and 2 Spellbook of Knowledge.
Yeah, so do you want to talk about this engine a bit?
The only normal summon really in the deck is Swap Frog, who also can be special summoned if you draw another water. So if I can use Blue Boy as a normal summon, he's essentially Destiny Draw.
Yeah.
I have 5 cards that mean that I can Destiny Draw, Pot of Greed, if I give up my normal summon, or if I have 2 of them in hand, it's a Destiny Draw.
Yeah, and also the fact that Blue Boys are water as well is also a benefit.
Yeah, so it's got some other little interactions. So it is a water for Swap Frog. It's a level 2. I can add it back with Totally Awesome because it's a water as well. So there's a lot of cool little things about it that, like, as well as being a draw engine, it does this other stuff. So he's pretty good. He's pretty versatile, really. And then the last monster is Maxi.
Yeah.
We're still in Zoo format at the time, so we still need to play Maxi. And then the only other 2 spells is 2-Pot Desires. I didn't want to play 3 because I never wanted to resolve more than 1. Just because I am playing the Spellbook engine, I could risk banishing too many pieces to not be able to resolve my knowledges.
Sure.
So then on to traps, and obviously it's Paleozoic, there will be a lot of them. So I play 14 Paleos, so 3 of the MST, 3 of the Foolish Burial for traps, 3 of the Calm Cut, 3 of the Book of Moon, and 2 of the Burial. This card, I realised while I was playing the tournament, I should have sided it out more going first. There were a couple of games where I opened it dead, like opened both of them, which is unlucky, but if you manage to resolve a Desires going first, it's not that bad, because obviously you get to then return things like your Ronin Toad into the grave, or your other Paleos. One of the coolest things you can actually do with it is if your opponent Desires, you can just target their face down banished cards, just so that you can like trigger your Paleos from grave. So there were games where I had double this face down because I drew them dead. I had a Paleo in grave, so I'd flip one up, target their banished card, chain my Paleo, summon it, swing, play another one, summon the first one. It was pretty good, but I learned from my mistake. I would definitely side one out going first.
Uh-huh.
And then on to the non-Paleo traps. 3 D barrier. It was Zoo format, so obviously the card's really good. It essentially just stuns them for a turn.
Yeah.
They can just summon Thoroughblades and attack over your Paleos though. But at least they're not going to Trident. And then the 4 Solemns. 3 Floodgate Trap Hole is really good if you get to stun your opponent's extra monster zone. A lot of games people just had to Dark Hole themselves or find some way to get Shuffle Reborn in the grave, which if you do this on their monster before they've Shuffle Reborned anything, they may not ever have the opportunity to do. So at that point they are forced to just attack with Thoroughblades and Whiptails. Especially if they didn't do the play where they put Trident into the main monster zone. Speaking of that play, against this deck it's actually not all that great. Because people often put the Trident in defense mode, and the Paleos are unaffected by monster effects, you can just use your Paleos to attack into it. They would have to put 3 Whiptails on it, just so that your Paleo doesn't beat it in battle. And even at that, your Paleo isn't banished because it's unaffected. So the deck's still really good, just going second against Zoo. And then 5 Mirror Forces. The Quaking was much better than the regular Mirror Force. Not because of my body, but just because it gets to stun your opponent's monsters permanently. Again, if they leave their extra monster attacking and it gets hit by this, they're in a really tough spot where they're just swinging with Thoroughblades.
I can imagine it gives you a lot of time to grab resources and such.
Yeah, if you're behind the game, it really gives you a lot of time to get back into it. And then the last 3 cards was, it was either going to be free Magic Deflector or free Heavy Storm Duster. I went with Deflector just because this card is really good against True Draco and Zoo. So against Zoo, it hits things like the Tenkies, the Barrage, all their quick play spells. Even Econ sometimes came up with this. Some people played Twin Twister, which are negated. And against Draco, it hits all their continuous spells, the field spell, and again, if they play any quick plays, it hits them.
Yeah.
So it was really good against them. But I was considering playing Heavy Storm Duster. I'm not sure which one would have been better in the end. This card did stop some clutch Twin Twisters. But whether that's better than having had the, or would have having the Heavy Storm Duster, I'm not sure. But I guess we'll never know.
I suppose the advantage of Deflector on one part is that you can activate it at any point.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see moving into the new format, what stays in and what moves out. So.
Yeah. So the extra deck was 3 Toads, 2 Babina, 2 Anomalous Icaris. I'll be honest, I never really made more than 1 Babina, and I never made Anomalous Icaris. The opportunity came up, but you could definitely cut this down to 1, or you could have for that format because we had no Starboy. We'll talk about that later though, what we could play. So this card will probably come up more often in the next format, just because we can exceed someone more freely. And then I played 3 other level rank 2s. So Centuria, Crumble Logos, and Curse Javelin. So these were just kind of like the cards I'll probably go into once or not at all over the course of the tournament. So I ended up never making these cards. But Curse Javelin probably won me about 3 or 4 games outright. Because I've played against a lot of Zoo, and this deck is just inherently quite slow, I quite often went to time. So if I get to summon this card, resolve its effect, I then get to beat over that monster for as much damage as my monster has. Because the effect of this card is, during my turn, I can detach material, and a monster's effect is negated, and its attack becomes 0. So if I use this on an attack position Zoo, its effect's negated, so it has 0 attack anyway, and any whip tails on it don't affect it anymore. So this card was definitely, other than Toad, was definitely the MVP of the extra deck. We've got some late monsters, 2 Proxy Dragon, 2 Decode Talker, and a Topological. You can't use your Paleos to make Decode Talker or Bomber Dragon, because they are vanilla monsters, they don't have effects, so you need to turn them into Proxy Dragons first. So ideally, if you had to make Decode Talker, you would use 2 Paleos to make a Proxy Dragon, and then something like a Ronin Toadin to make Decode. So he was necessary sometimes, just to be big enough to attack over some monsters. The Bomber Dragon, being 3000, means that without the diagram on board, it's big enough to attack over Masterpiece. It also has this other really cool interaction where, because Paleos aren't affected by monster effects, if you resolve a trap, summon a Paleo to one of the zones it points to, it then destroys all the monsters in the main monster zone, but your Paleos are safe. So he was, in theory he was pretty good, but I never ended up summoning him. I did make Proxy and Decodes though. And again, this was before my Starboy was released, so in the next format this will change.
Sure, so moving on to the side deck.
Okay, side deck. A lot of this is just hate towards True Draco, because as you can imagine, a Masterpiece is really difficult for this deck to deal with. Because in the main deck, there's no spell cards outs to Masterpiece. There are trap outs and monster outs, but other than that, there isn't any. So a lot of this, it really is just going second, going first, hate towards them. So 3 Gamma Seal, 3 Cosmic Cyclone, Dark Horror Regeki, 3 Mask of Restrict, 2 Heavy Storm Duster, Imperial Order, and Forbidden Apocrypha. I only put this in because I thought I wanted another card going first against Zoo, but honestly it didn't come up often enough. It would have been better off just as another Dark Hole, which at the time was legal. Dark Hole has gone to 1 now, the new list. But yeah, so I should have played 2 Dark Hole, 1 Regeki. There was an event the next day in which I did that, but I didn't do quite as well on that event, unfortunately. Okay guys, so we're just going to do a little bit of discussion on some of the changes we're going to make to the deck going forward. What things get better, what things get a little bit worse. So my first thoughts were, so when I was initially told about the Spellbook engine, I was a little bit worried about the fact that because Trident was still around, you could summon Blue Boy, use your secrets, add a knowledge, and if you play the knowledge, if they Trident the Blue Boy, and your knowledge is about to resolve, you have to reveal your hand if you can't resolve the card. So what ended up happening is you've lost your knowledge, you've lost your Blue Boy to your opponent's Trident, and your opponent now gets to see your whole hand. Obviously, ideally, you'd set it first if you expected that to happen. However, with Trident no longer being a card, it's less likely that your knowledge is going to whiff. So I feel like this card's a lot stronger going into the next format. It was really good in that tournament that I played, just because you can kind of play around it a bit by going Blue Boy, search your secrets, and then doing your battle phase first to see if you can bait the Trident, holding the secrets, and then main phase 2 maybe secreting for another Blue Boy. But in the next format, I think this is going to resolve a lot more often, and it's going to be a lot more effective. One of the other things we're going to talk about is Quaking Mirror Force. So Quaking Mirror Force is really strong just because it shut down the opponent's extra monster zone. If they didn't know you were playing it and swung into it, that could well just cost them that game. So if they don't see it until game 2 or 3, they could well just lose that game straight away, and it's too late for them to not make that mistake later. Floodgate is a similar card. It's probably still going to stay in the deck because it still shuts down the extra monster zone, but it's also more versatile because it essentially just like bottomless use function. It is essentially removal. The monster's going face down, but it can't move, so you have as much time as you need to get rid of that card. So it's probably going to stay in the main deck. Quaking, I think we'll have to wait and see. The card is still really, really strong, and it probably will stay in the deck, but we'll wait and see how it goes. So the next cards we want to talk about are Deflector, Barrier, and Maxi. These 3 cards are going to be really dependent on what decks are really strong in the next format. Having talked with the rest of the team, we think True Draco is still going to be a really strong deck. Zoo are definitely still going to be around. So long as they have Chakanine and Barrage, the deck will still be existing. So D-Barrier may not be a main deck card, but it might be relegated to the side deck in Freeze, just to come in against that matchup. Same with Maxi. They won't be summoning as much, but it's definitely still going to net you some draws if you chain it to a chain it to a Chakanine. Magic Deflector is really good against True Draco, so if that deck is staying around, it's definitely going to be a really good card. Especially since there's probably more emphasis on the spells now, since there's a lack of the traps.
Yep. So now I guess we just talk about the new extra deck support, I suppose, for the deck.
Yeah, so up until this point, we haven't had a water monster to summon from the extra deck. So Zoo has had Mrs. Radiant, but this deck hasn't had their 2 material monster that gives them access to the main monster zones. And luckily, that card is coming out second, so Mrs. with the first one, we now get Mustar Boy, which points diagonally left down and diagonally right down. So unfortunately, it won't pump our Paleozoics up by 500 attack because they're unaffected by monster effects, but it will give us access to a lot more extra monsters. So it's possible again to summon multiple Toads or Toad over Vina. That card is released this week. I'd definitely play at least 2 in the deck, maybe even 3, just because of the fact that because we can pump out waters for so cheap, using things like our Leoncolia to return frogs back to the grave, to summon with Ronin, chaining a trap to summon it, it's very easy for us to get a lot of little water monsters in the field to turn into Mustar Boys, which just get bigger and bigger. So yeah, I probably would actually consider playing 3.
It has lots of use in the deck, and obviously it can add back a water when it dies as well.
Yeah, so obviously the biggest one of that is that, again, just like the Totally Awesome can add back the Blue Boy, so can the Mustar Boy.
Yep.
You can also add back Swab Frog just to make more Link summons later on, which is pretty good.
So
in terms of the rest of the extra deck, this will change a lot because we're going to have to make room.
But other than that, it's looking like good support for the deck. So not only have you been able to take on a field of Zodiacs for the tournament on Saturday, but it's looking nothing but good for the deck moving forward. So congratulations again on your top.
Cheers.
And hopefully we'll see more very soon.
See you later, guys.